What brought me here today, I like the idea of just coming together as a community, especially with other people who are socially progressive, who are like-minded in that sense, and also who doesn't like barbecue. so that's a big part of it as well. But yeah, to meet like-minded people, hang out with old friends, make new friends. That's mainly why I came. So my name is Felix Poon. I'm 35. He, him, his are my pronouns. I was born in Springfield, Massachusetts, and I grew up in that area, and was there most of my life. Basically, I went to undergraduate school at UMass Amherst. So I was in that area like for a good 20 years or so until I actually went to Hong Kong to study abroad. But to get to the question of how my family came here, in terms of my immediate family, it starts with my dad, who came to the US to study his undergraduate degree at Northeastern University in engineering. And he said that he chose Northeastern University because of its co-op program. So as an international student, being able to get the work experience and to graduate with work experience would make it easier to find work. So he was accepted to Northeastern, and he decided to come here basically with just a one-way plane ticket and enough money for one semester at Northeastern University. Because my dad's family and my mom's family also didn't have a lot of money. So he came here, he studied for a few years. Him and my mom had already met before he came to the US. So they were doing this long distance dating. And eventually, after a few years, they're corresponding by written mail and sometimes phone. But phone quality back then is expensive and it's bad quality. So they're communicating by written mail, and my mom eventually more or less delivers an ultimatum, like subtly, diplomatically, to say like, hey, like, are you gonna marry me or not? Like, if we don't get married soon, like, I think we should just end this type of thing. So he flew back to Hong Kong to marry her, and then brought her back here to Boston. The funny story about my dad going back to Hong Kong to marry my mom is that, at the airport, my mom barely recognized my dad because he had grown his hair out and his hairstyle was a mullet, basically. So my mom didn't say anything like right away, but like the next day she was like, we're bringing you to a hair salon and we're gonna cut that out. So that's kind of a funny story that my parents told me. But yeah, they got married, moved back here to Boston. My dad finished the final semester of his university. They lived in Somerville, gave birth to my sister, moved out to the Springfield area of Massachusetts, which is where my brother and then I was born, and where I grew up. I think from my own experience as an immigrant of color, me and my family stood out a lot growing up. Grew up in a very white neighborhood, a very white town, and so we were picked on a lot, me, my siblings. I think part of that was that the demographics in our town were very like white, working class, and they were also several white immigrants. They were immigrants from Portugal and Poland, and so I think they didn't have like a sense of like political correctness. and I'm not saying political correctness is the right way to go, but they also were very they were very aggressive in harassing us, and you know, we had some neighbors that told us to go back to China. In middle school, our vice principal told one of my family friends' kids, someone about my age, the vice principal called him a chink. You know, in second grade, my teacher told our class no one has black hair, and people asked, like, what about Felix? And then she said, well, Felix doesn't count. And so there's a lot of difficult experiences growing up, feeling like very different, very ostracized, you know, outside of the community. And you know, I think a lot of people think that racism doesn't exist anymore. But you know, just as recent when I was a kid, like I dealt with a lot of racism, and we see with the current political climate, the anti-immigrant sentiment is pretty strong. So I think it's a pretty common thread actually throughout American history that I've experienced in my own personal experiences going to school, as well as what we're seeing across the country now. Yeah. So I think for my dad and my mom, so my mom was from Zhongshan, China, and my dad was from Guangzhou or Guangzhou when they were young children, but they both moved to Hong Kong respectively, independently, with their families pretty early on in life. So they would consider their hometown, I guess, Hong Kong, but it's been such a long time, you know, so you know, my mother's passed away now, so I have to talk about her in the past tense. My dad, they both got really accustomed to life in the U.S. So if anything, like several years back, they were actually going back and forth living in Hong Kong, and actually my mom was like, I miss the U.S., I want to go back to the U.S. So they've definitely adopted, you know, this area as their home, U.S. as their home, but like this area specifically. So probably the only thing that my dad misses would be food, right? Convenience of public transportation in Hong Kong. Trains are very efficient, buses are very efficient. You don't need a car, it's very easy to get anywhere you want. That's probably about it. You know, obviously friends and family. But you know, we also have a lot of friends and family in the U.S. So yeah, I guess the takeaway there is that we're pretty settled in here, and this is our home now. So.